Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me again in another of my series of sketches of my life. Today, I'll be speaking about church and my relationship with God, or lack thereof as a young person growing up. Now, I remember when I was about maybe 5 and upwards, my mom would send me on a Sunday morning with this lady named Bev Jones, who lived a bit down the road from Island Park, to church. So every Sunday morning I would go to Sunday school, and then after they take us out of Sunday school, we would go into the church part and be there for a while, then head back home. This went on for quite a while. And then after a while, I was sent around to another church, which was walking distance. Sometimes I would go and come back. As I said, this went on for a while, but then continued going to church with other people, never seeing my mother going to a church, except maybe if she had to go to a funeral, you would see her going to a church service then. And I remember when I was about maybe 9, 10 thereabout, one day I said to her, why is it that she's not going to church? Every time she's sending me to church, I'm not going. And I don't remember what her thing was, but I guess she would say that every child is supposed to go to church and learn about God. Mind you, my mother always spoke about God and is one who was always reading her Bible and praying at that time, but just not going to church and always sending me. Now the rebelliousness in me came about, and I remember I said to her, well, if you're not going, I'm not going either. And there was nothing she could do to get me to go to church after a while, because I just thought that if she's not going, why should I be going? And I just never went back to church until, went about my life, lived my life. Yeah, you go to school and you pray at church, at school in devotion and all of that, and you do the daily devotions. You might sometimes read your Bible at home. Becoming an adult, my lifestyle continued the same way, wherein I wouldn't go to church. Working at this place, maybe a little before I had my daughter, and also a little after, I would get invited to this church, St. Mary. I visited twice. Felt very uneasy, to tell the truth. And after I had my daughter, I went back there to have her christened, because at that time I wasn't yet introduced to the Adventist faith, so I never knew about blessing. It was christening I knew of. And like I said, I felt very uneasy when I went into any church. I just always wanted to come out. It just always had this uneasy feeling. And I remember years later, I happened to be living in a different area in St. Mary now. And the lady, she's an Adventist. She would always talk to me about God, the landlady. We lived on the same house. And I would listen, and she would share, she's gonna have her evening devotions or so. She'd ask me to join her, and I would join her, and gradually would be learning of God, and she would always be talking to me about God. In the same breath, I had a dream one night wherein there was this bright light, and my mom and somebody else, I don't remember if it was my niece, but I remember specifically that vividly, that my mom was the one going under the water. And when she came up, there was this bright light over her head, as if the heavens were opening up and all. And I called her a day or two later and told her the dream, and she said that she got baptized. A little after that, she sent me a book called The Great Controversy, and I read that book along with the Bible. During this time, my landlady was always talking to me about God. I read that book along with the Bible, and that was where I made that conscious decision that I would change my life and actually start walking the Christian pathway. And I would actually worship on the Sabbath as my main day of worship, my day of rest. And I remember my landlady invited me to come down to her church one Sabbath. And I went down. That time I had my son. Now he was a young baby. He was about maybe 2 months thereabout. And I went down with him and my daughter, along with her, to the church. That time I was driving, so I drove down. And when I went with the intention I would just go and leave part day. When I went, I didn't leave. I stayed all day. And it was like a feeling of being home, of being right at the right place. And I've never once felt uneasy or as if I'm in the wrong place. And that was how my journey began with serving God. So, yes, I'll be sharing stories I've shared before, and I'll continue to share, wherein you see times when I don't know God, and times after I've known God where I've maybe faltered or stepped out of the way. But in spite of it all, what I'm glad for and what has always kept me close to God and on the pathway with Him is that it isn't a man who really gave me that conviction or made me make that choice to serve him. It was based on my reading the Bible along with that book and praying, and him leading me and directing me. So that is why no matter what I've been through or what I might share with you that I've gone through, I've always stuck with him, stayed with him, asked him to continue to guide me, because it was Christ who called me, who showed me the way, not a man. So no matter what happens, I always stick around. So thank you for listening to my vlog today. Please continue to like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section. Thank you. See you next week.